When you have the best defensive player in the NFL, a Super Bowl winning coach, and a record-breaking quarterback whose number one target took a below-market deal to stay on board, you are clearly doing something right. After orchestrating one of the worst trades in NFL history, Broncos GM George Paton is on track to complete a front office redemption arc for the ages. Smart drafting, shrewd contracts, clever work in free agency, and a strong foundation with Sean Payton pulling the strings have the boys in orange and blue poised to dominate for years to come. This is why the NFL has a Denver Broncos problem. Before they could become a problem for the rest of the league, Denver had some serious internal issues to resolve first, something they did way ahead of schedule in 2024. Going into last season, the only team with a longer playoff drought than Denver was the New York Jets. Pretty awful company to keep. Truth be told, a carousel of coaches and QBs followed shortly after their Super Bowl 50 triumph. Such consistent dysfunction can't be reduced to bad luck. There was a total lack of leadership. Ever since legendary owner and executive Pat Bowlen stepped down in 2014, there has been a lack of coherent vision for the franchise. Joe Ellis was meant to take his spot as CEO, while club legend John Elway was to stay on as GM, which seemed like a winning setup after Denver captured their third Lombardi in early 2016. Peyton Manning got to ride off into the sunset, and everybody won. Well, not quite everybody. The front office's failure to find a suitable franchise quarterback in the ensuing years was compounded by the passing of Pat Bowlen in 2019, which placed the franchise in the hands of a trust controlled by his 7 children. This was, understandably, not the ideal circumstances for the on-field product to flourish. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Philip Lindsay, Brett Rippon, and Teddy Bridgewater all started under center and were given a legitimate shot at replacing the sheriff, but not a single one could. By 2022, the ownership situation was resolved by the Walter Penner Group purchasing the club outright from the Bowlen estate, with recently arrived GM George Paton taking over for John Elway and Nathaniel Hackett recruited as head coach in the hopes of tempting Aaron Rodgers to take up the mantle in Colorado. Things quickly went from bad to worse. Desperate for proven quality at quarterback, Denver sent a haul to Seattle in exchange for the 33-year-old Russell Wilson, who was inexplicably given a 5-year, $245 million contract extension upon arrival, bringing with him an entourage of personal staff. Apart from generating meme templates, Mr. Unlimited couldn't get anything going in Denver and saw his head coach fired shortly after Christmas. In came Sean Payton, who the Walter Penner family hoped would help the franchise course correct. Payton humbled Wilson in more ways than one, as the relationship became untenable, which led to the QB's release at the start of the 2024 offseason. And, as a result, a colossal dead cap hit of $85 million, an NFL record. Ouch. So, saddled with a crippling dead cap hit, the Denver Broncos were back at square one with no starting quarterback to speak of. That was until they used their only first rounder of the past 3 drafts, thanks to the Russ trade, to bring in Bo Nix 12th overall, a risk that would prove decisive in the 2024 season. You see, George Paton had quietly been building a formidable team in just about every other position. But just as it seemed that a reliable QB would elude him forever, Bo Nix came into the picture as the first rookie to be Denver's Week 1 starter since who else but John Elway. After a rough start, Nix excelled. His final stat line of 3,775 passing yards and 29 touchdowns went nicely with his 430 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground, the definition of dual threat and easily the best season by any Broncos quarterback since Manning a decade prior. Most importantly, he logged 10 wins, enough to end Denver's playoff drought, a remarkable feat just one season after taking on the biggest dead cap hit the league had ever seen. Nix's most impressive performance of the season came against Atlanta in Week 11, where he passed for 307 yards and 4 scores. He completed 28 of 33 passes to become the first rookie quarterback to complete 80+% of his passes with 300+ yards and 4+ touchdowns in a game. Bo broke franchise records for most passing touchdowns, most completions, most passing yards, most wins, highest single-game completion percentage, and most touchdown passes in a season by a rookie quarterback. While the Elway comparisons seemed ludicrous before the season, Nix's role in the turnaround made them seem all the more grounded. Overall, Bo Nix had adjusted brilliantly to life in the NFL and Sean Payton's offense, which is equal parts complex and prolific. 8 of Nix's 29 passing touchdowns went to Courtland Sutton, a great servant of the franchise. Despite putting up with some abysmal quarterback play, often second fiddle to Jerry Jeudy, and overcoming a torn ACL right after his breakout season, Sutton stuck with the Broncos through thick and thin. He was finally rewarded for his loyalty when Bo Nix arrived, providing consistent play from under center for the first time in the vet's career, allowing him to ball out in the process. In a fairly young, thin Broncos receiver room, Sutton offers a lot more than just spectacular catches on the field. As head coach Sean Payton puts it, I think Courtland. He's a resource for the team from a leadership perspective. There's a work ethic and a toughness and a consistency day to day that I think is a great benefit to a young quarterback. For all of the promise shown on the field, keeping hold of your wide receiver one is another matter entirely. Just ask the Bengals, Cowboys, and Commanders. While the diva label is certainly not accurate for every wide receiver in the league, when it comes to locking down the position, most front offices have had a hard time meeting their star's asking price. Even Sutton's rookie extension, which he signed in 2021, was set to expire at the end of 2025, by which point he'd be nearly 31. Payton and the Denver staff had a tough decision to make, but ultimately chose to sign Courtland Sutton to a 4-year, $92 million deal, $41 million of which is guaranteed. No doubt, a great price for your wide receiver one. Not only is this a fantastic display of reciprocal loyalty from franchise to player, but it is also a signal to the fan base that this was no longer an organization that would overpay for has-beens. Instead, this is a front office that rewards consistency in the here and now. On Sutton's end, this deal is particularly significant, not only on a professional level, but also as a demonstration of his leadership and character. He told the Denver Post, "It wasn't just about me. At the end of the day, yes, we work in a business of compensation. There's talent in that locker room, guys that are coming up, that are trying to get their second contract. I was blessed to be able to get my third. They put the work in just the same way as I have. And some of those guys have more accolades than I have when it comes to the NFL side of things. And to be able to sign the deal that we did, it gives us a chance to keep those guys around." That kind of team-first mentality is exactly what Denver need if they are to climb back to the top of the mountain. It's impossible to understate the gravity of this moment for the Broncos. It sets a precedent for each contract that follows. They're going all in on winning now and aren't afraid to let everybody know it. Those contracts that Sutton is saving space for, they don't even play on the same side of the ball. Zach Allen just signed a very well-deserved 4-year, $102 million deal, having finished the 2024 season with 8.5 sacks. Nick Bonitto is then surely up next, having led the team with 13.5 sacks in 2024. Bonitto has improved year on year with the Broncos, far outperforming his status as a second-round pick. He isn't quite as dynamic against the run as he is against the pass, but he provides enough quality to these Broncos to be worth a pretty penny whenever they commence negotiations. This unit set a franchise record with 63 sacks last season, so keeping them together is a top priority. Inside linebacker Alex Singleton, who missed most of last season with a ruptured ACL, was Denver's leading tackler in 2022 and 2023. Singleton will be entering a contract year, as will starting strong safety PJ Locke. Additionally, helpful depth pieces such as Justin Stranad and Malcolm Roach will be hoping to play in Denver past 2025. Safe to say, there are a lot of hungry mouths to feed at Broncos Park, especially on defense, an issue that Courtland Sutton hopes his deal has helped resolve. Keep in mind, the Broncos have the richest owner in the entire NFL, so you won't see them cheapskating their defensive guys like the Bengals. Since the Russ trade, GM George Paton has more than demonstrated his competence, so don't expect them to continue to corner themselves against the cap like the Cowboys or Saints. After all, they signed Pat Surtain to a 4-year, $96 million contract last offseason, even though he was coming off a slight down year in 2023. As the highest paid DB in NFL history, Surtain proved he was worth every penny, with a Defensive Player of the Year campaign becoming only the second cornerback to win the award since 2010. According to Next Gen Stats, he allowed the fewest receiving yards and the second lowest passer rating when targeted among cornerbacks with at least 375 coverage snaps. He was also responsible for one of the most important plays of the season. Down 7 points to the Raiders in Week 5, Surtain provided a 100-yard pick six. It kept the momentum going for the 2-2 Broncos, who not only came out on top in that game, but also proceeded to win 7 of their next 10 en route to the playoffs. All of that to say, the last time Payton paid top dollar for a defensive playmaker, it was well worth the cost. That shouldn't come as a surprise. This unit led the league with 4.65 yards allowed per play and had the third best red zone defense. Not only have the Broncos kept most of the team intact, but they've added some insane talent as well. Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga come in from San Francisco on 3-year deals worth $35 and $45 million respectively. But they weren't done with the secondary quite yet, spending their first-round pick on corner Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Reports coming from training camp suggest he's adjusting to life in the league seamlessly, and he should see plenty of time on the field. In rounds 3 and 4, they added DN Savion Jones and Quay Robinson, with the latter also a contributor on special teams. Despite already sitting amongst the best in the league, Denver chose to bolster an already absurd defense. Meanwhile, on offense, tight end Evan Ingram arrives on a 2-year, $23 million deal and should thrive in Sean Payton's offense. Not that last season suggested he needs it, but Bo Nix is getting even more help in the form of wideout Trent Sherfield and running back J.K. Dobbins, the latter of which will improve a mediocre rushing attack. They tried to assess this need again in the draft, selecting RJ Harvey out of UCF in the second round, who can develop into a bell cow back as he learns under Dobbins. In round 3, contested catch specialist Pat Bryant from Illinois came through, set to learn behind Courtland Sutton, who had plenty of experience mentoring wideouts in an extremely young receivers room last season. Denver has done a remarkable job of doubling down on their strengths and targeting major weaknesses, while building sustainably for a future led by Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton on offense, complemented by Pat Surtain and Nick Bonitto on defense. After nearly a decade of dysfunction and one of the worst trades and contracts in NFL history, George Paton's front office has worked exhaustively to redeem itself. Made up of a young, hungry core, guided by a coach who knows exactly what it takes to win the Lombardi, these Denver Broncos are going to be a problem, not just in 2025, but for many years to come. So, what do you think? Is Bo Nix the real deal? Will they be able to beat the Chiefs to the AFC West title? Let us know in the comments.